Hey everybody, Dean Miller here, the dog counselor, ready to give you some advice about training and teaching your puppies and your dogs, and talking about behavior issues, talking about training, whatever it is you want to talk about. I'm here to talk about it. Again, I'm Dean Miller, the dog counselor. You can reach me through my website, which is thedogcounselor.com. I appear here every Thursday and Sunday. I'm trying to adjust this so you don't see a reflection in the glass. But anyway, that is the logo for the Wolf Driver. Maybe I'll just put it over on this side. Maybe there's less reflection. But my name is Dean Miller. Again, I am the dog counselor. You can reach me through my website. I think I already said that. And this is the Wolf Driver channel, or Facebook page, or whatever you want to call it. The Wolf Driver is a guy named Bill Hellman, and he is a guy that has a whole bunch of really cool dogs, and they pull him on a kind of a, I don't know what you call that thing. Somebody told me last week, and I've already forgotten, but it's a cart, and dogs pull it, and it's kind of like a sled, but it's got wheels, and he goes all over the place with it, goes all over the place with his dogs. And he's really big on education and loving dogs and spreading the word about how important dogs are to those of us who really understand and get the depth of their love. So, that being said, I'm here to kind of every Thursday night at, Thursday night at 8 and Sunday night at 6, I come on to talk to you about dog behavior issues. Now, if you want to type in and write to me and ask me things, I am happy to answer. I'm here for your questions and your comments, and in fact I love the questions and comments, and I get real sad when there aren't any questions or comments. Every week is different. Sometimes we have tons of viewers and sometimes we have less. I realize people have very busy lives out there, as do I. But if you want to make it a point to visit us every Thursday and Sunday, we have new information every week. I try to keep it lively and interesting, and new topics all the time, new research on training, new ideas about behavior issues, and all kinds of things. So please feel free to type in your comments or questions right now. We are live, and I would be happy to talk to you and answer anything you'd like to know. I would also encourage you to watch the other shows on the Wolf Driver channel. You have Wolf Diddy, the guy who talks about music and breeds and all kinds of stuff. You have the Wolf Driver himself, who does the karting and the running around. He does these ghost runs at night where they actually do the, whatever that's called, where they with the infrared cameras, and they search for ghosts with the dogs. I mean, I would think the dogs would scare the ghosts away, but I don't know how all that works. And then you have dog yoga. You have some really amazing stuff. Just explore the Wolf Driver page, which you're on now, and if you're watching me, you found it. And then you can find the other shows and programs, and maybe you can find some interesting stuff that you can keep returning for. Let's dive right into the topic of this week. I'm going to base this week's show on the last couple of training sessions I did, because they're very, very different. The last two training sessions I did are very different from each other. So I thought I'd kind of launch off of what happened at those training sessions and kind of help you with like a little mini expose about what the issues were and what we were going through. And again, along the way, if you want to ask your questions, please feel free to type them in there. You can type at the bottom of the screen there. I think there's a little box. You just comment and it'll pop right up and I'll answer for you. So let's start with the Siberian Husky puppy that I worked with. The Siberian Husky puppy was 5 months old. I love Siberian Huskies. You know, the Wolf Driver has Siberian Huskies, and as he can tell you, and I can tell you, a Siberian Husky is born and bred for the cold weather, and for working, for having a job. And they love to pull, they love to go, they love to run, they love to have stuff to do. And I think it's a mistake for people to think they're going to get a dog like that and just have a couch potato buddy to lay around with. They, even at an early age, you can see they have high energy, and you're going to need to find an outlet for that energy. A Siberian Husky is going to need to run and go and have some mental stimulation, because they're very, very smart. This particular dog was so smart. It was a little girl. Her name was Misty, 5 months old, Siberian Husky. And she was just beautiful and so smart. They're so smart. I'm telling you, they're the smartest dogs ever. We would practice a routine or practice something a couple of times. She got it right away. And that brings me to the way I train puppies. I base my training on the way dogs communicate with each other. There are a lot of people who go to stand-up classes where you go with 5 or 6 other people, and one week you learn how to sit and you use treats, and the next week you learn how to stay and learn how to, and that's all fine and good. Those are great classes. They're really good for socialization, for a dog to learn to socialize and meet other dogs and you know, get acclimated to the world and not be so overwhelmed and you know, have their senses inundated when they go in a store or a classroom with other dogs and people. So in that sense, a class is fantastic. But there is some learning that I believe there is no substitute for learning in your home. And I'm what I call a get-to-the-point trainer. I like to get in there and just get right to the point, get you communicating with your dog communicating back, loving each other, mutual respect, understanding each other. And so I based my training on the way they communicate, so that if you'll learn just a few simple things, we'll be off and running. Those dogs will know exactly what you want. I kind of liken it to this. If you go to a class, it's kind of like a child going to school. A child needs to go to school. A child loves to learn math and science and spelling and reading. So that's kind of what going to class is like. We're going to learn behaviors, like sit and stay and come and lie down. When I come to your home and teach, I'm going to teach you those things, but I'm going to teach you how to teach them. I'm going to teach you not only how to teach those, but how to teach anything you want to teach your dog to do. Because if you're speaking the same language, the dog understands what you want from them, and you understand what motivates them. So the dog begins to do what you want instantly, and they begin wanting to do what you want. So my form of training is kind of like Dr. Phil coming into your house and showing you how to get along with the whole family and have everybody understand each other and have a peaceful, beautiful, organized family life. And the classes are more like school, where you learn homework and you know, exercise your brain. So that's kind of my philosophy. Back to the Siberian Husky I trained this week. I went over, there were 2 teenage children, 14 and 16, and there were 2 adults, the parents. They had 2 smaller dogs. One of them was a Chihuahua, and that Chihuahua ran the house. That Chihuahua was a dominant leader, alpha type of dog. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But there were 2 smaller dogs and the Siberian Husky puppy that they had then brought in there. And the idea was, this Siberian Husky is for our son. The 16-year-old was going to get the Siberian Husky, that was going to be his dog, and then the Chihuahua was more bonded to the daughter, and the middle dog was more to the whole family. I mean, yes, okay, we have our favorites. We gravitate to certain people. Dogs do too. You know, we may gravitate to a certain person in the family. But the humans in the house should have a sense of control and leadership above the dogs in the pack. Because dogs have a pack mentality. They don't look at you as, you know, equal all the time, or they want to know who's above, who's below, who's dominant, who's submissive. And a dog will respond accordingly whether they think they should listen to you. If you're just their buddy, they kind of feel like, why should I listen to you, right? But if you are someone that I respect, you're above me, you're a mom, you're a dad, so to speak, then they see a reason to listen to you. So in this family, it was kind of, it wasn't a free-for-all, but it was a little bit disorganized, okay? And what I see when I go into houses often is people are trying to apply human logic to dog issues. So they're talking to the dogs, they're using a lot of words, there's a lot of miscommunication, and as I say, there's a whole world going on under your knees that you're not always paying attention to. The dogs are kind of sorting it out between each other, and we often miss that and don't step in to say, hey, it's not a fight between you two, I'm the boss around here. And when you step in and teach that, you are actually comforting the dogs, I promise you. Dogs want to know who's the boss, who's the leader, what's the structure, what's the organization in the house. And they don't resent you for being a leader. They just want to know, where do we stand in the order of things. And I think that's reasonable. It's just like a 5-year-old kid or something. They want to know, when do we eat? What time do we go to school? When do I need to be ready? And so that's kind of the gist of it. So when I came into this house, there was a little bit of a free-for-all. There was a sort of a situation where they were letting the dogs sort some stuff out amongst themselves, and it was becoming chaotic. There had been a fight between the Chihuahua and the Siberian Husky. The two smaller dogs had already been there and established their position before the Husky got there. And the Husky's a young kid trying to figure out his place in the house and in the order of the pack. So at that point, it's very important that you step in and put order to this, or the dogs are going to put their own order to it, and that can be dangerous sometimes. Let's come back to this point where I was saying that the Chihuahua of the house, the little guy, was the number one alpha, at least in his mind. You know, a dog's size is not the thing. You know, the biggest dog does not always emerge as the alpha. It's what the dog believes. And as early as 5 weeks old, you can look at puppies and you can say, this one's more prone to being an alpha, this is more prone to being a mid-level dog, this is more prone to being a follower dog. They exhibit these traits very early in life as puppies. And it helps to see that and know that when you're training your dog, to know, do I have a sensitive follower puppy? Do I have a challenging alpha dog? Do I have a mid-level eager to please dog? You know, one of the things that's very common for me is a lot of people ask me, how do I do this with my dog? How do I teach my dog to walk on a leash? How do I get my dog to sit? Well, you know, there are some basic general rules, but you have to remember that every dog is an individual, just like every person is an individual. So, you know, I might not work with a shy person the same way I would work with an assertive person. I might not work with someone who's had trauma the same way I would work with someone who's a clean slate, or maybe even has a sense of entitlement. You know, everybody's different, and I want to meet them where they are. And that's another thing that's really great about my style of training. After all these years of doing this, when I come into your home, I'm really good at assessing where your dog stands. What's the pack order, what's going on, who's the boss, who's submissive, who's dominant, and what issues are going on. I'm pretty good at observing that, because dogs are not capable of deception. They can't pretend to do one thing and do another. They can't pretend to like you and really hate you. They can't pretend to love you and then really be sneaking around thinking, how can they hurt you? They just aren't. What you see is what you get. And even when they're at their most aggressive, they're showing you how they feel. And it's a beautiful, admirable quality that we could learn a lot from. I believe in non-deception. I believe in being who you are, and that's what dogs do. They just are who they are, and they teach us about that all the time. So back on track here. I tend to ramble and talk a lot, but back to this Chihuahua that lived in the house. His name was Frodo, by the way. Frodo was very assertive. Not mean, not aggressive, didn't hurt anybody, didn't bite anybody, but he believed he was a boss. And let me tell you, that is the mark of a true alpha. A true alpha dog, in my opinion, is kind of like the Godfather. If you've ever seen the Godfather, you know, that Godfather, Marlon Brando, or later Michael Corleone, Al Pacino, they controlled the whole family, right? And they didn't control through yelling and screaming and intimidation. They simply quietly and assertively believed that they were the boss of the family. And that is power. If you know people, you're more apt to respond to the leadership of someone who is calm, relaxed, assertive, and knows who they are. And in fact, there's a lot of quietness and stillness to leadership. An alpha dog will move into a pack of dogs and just kind of stand there and own the room, you know. They'll move into the space of another dog and show dominance. And so this little Chihuahua, when I got over there, he was walking like a boss, and he just kind of was real slow and still and took his place on the couch and would move into your space. First thing he did when I arrived, I got down on the floor with the puppies, and he didn't come over to play, but he slowly and assertively put himself into my space. And when they assertively, slowly put themselves in your space, it's how they do it, but if they do it with assertion, they're often just telling you, just so you know, you feel that? I'm the boss. And so this little Chihuahua was taking over right away. I've seen Chihuahuas put German Shepherds on the ground. I've seen them control dogs far larger than they are just by what they believe. So it's kind of a beautiful thing, but you got to become the boss over them. You got to let them know you're just a notch above them in the pack. You don't want to take away their self-esteem. We're not going to break their spirit. We're just going to tell them, this might work with everybody else, but with me, I'm the boss. I'm the colonel, you're the captain. I'm the sergeant, you're the private. It doesn't mean we hate each other, we don't get along. It just means I'm a little bit above you in the pack order. And that's an important thing to remember. My mouth's getting dry. I'm gonna take a little water. So, I've been rambling, and I ramble all the time. Let me just check my time here so I don't go over. The time just flies. 15 minutes. I thought I'd been here 5 minutes. At the halfway point of my broadcast, I like to always mention my book, A Dog's Way, which is available. That's a cute dog, but it's not my dog. It's just a picture. But A Dog's Way is available on Amazon.com. It's also available on my website, thedogcounselor.com. I wrote this book about how dogs make us better people. And it's full of great information about dogs and stuff, and some anecdotes and stories, and some really educational stuff that I'm not sure other people are even teaching. And that's my dog Henry on the back. Henry is a street dog that I found in the street many years ago. He's been with me 11 years, something like that. And he's perfect. He never does anything wrong. He used to run away a lot. He would take off on adventures. He'd always come back. I'd always get him home again. But other than that, he's really a perfect guy. He's never chewed anything. He doesn't go to the bathroom in the house. He's a perfect, perfect baby. Really, one of the best dogs I've ever had. I have 4, by the way, for those of you wondering. Sometimes I get notes wondering how many dogs I have. I have 4. I have 3 mixed breeds, including Henry. I don't know what Henry is. I don't know what any of my dogs are. 2 of my dogs were found in the street, and they're brother and sister, and they're extremely bonded. They're what we call a bonded pair. They just can't live without each other, and they've been together since birth. And one is missing an eye. The eye is there, but it doesn't work. It was wounded when he was very young. I found them when they were approximately 3 months old. He already had the injury by then. It's very sad. He can only see out of one eye, but he is a beautiful dog. That's Flip, by the way. His name is Flip, and he's a little reddish brown dog, probably about this big. And I believe these dogs, I can't prove it, of course, because they're street dogs, but they were abandoned in the street, and I took them home with my sister, and I rescued them, and my sister had them for about a year, and then I've taken them on since then because I think they're kind of a handful, especially Penny, his sister, handful. So I took them on, and they live with me now. So it's the 2, I call them the Browns. Flip and Penny, they're brother and sister, and they live with me, and they're just beautiful. And then Henry, and then I have Kirby, who is my white boxer, and he's been with me about 10 years. So it's quite a house full with 4 dogs, and I love them all like my children. But none of these dogs are anything like each other. They're the most different crew of dogs I've ever seen. They are so different from each other. And that brings me back to this other point. I was talking about this house I went to where I trained this Siberian Husky puppy. He was 5 months old. And there are 2 other dogs in the house, a Chihuahua and a mixed breed. And those are 2 little tiny dogs with this going to be huge Siberian Husky. And now is the time to get the pack order in order, or they're going to have problems later on. So this Chihuahua, I want to talk to you about how I knew he was an alpha right away. Well, first of all, I talked about moving into space and all these things he was doing. He would move to the highest point on the couch to be above everyone, but not in an insecure way, in a very secure way. I'm going to sit on top of the couch, I'm going to look over all you people, and I'll let you know when I need anything. That is alpha behavior. He also would insist on your attention. He'd come over and just put himself on your lap. It's not that they get in your lap. It's okay for dogs to get in your lap. It's how they do it. Do they come over for love, or are they coming over to dominate? So he would come over to dominate often. He'd push his nose into my space. He was very sweet and very beautiful, but he had this alphaness. And here's where the issue really shows. Oftentimes when you go to correct an alpha dog, with a touch, or you push on them, or you give them a little touch, they give you a push back. So you kind of say, move, and they kind of give you an energy pushing back. So move, and they just come back. Move, and they push you back. They're showing you with their energy, I'm not taking that. I'm a leader. You feel that? You feel me pushing back? So little moments like that, you just have to stand your ground and win the moment. You don't have to be mean. It's not meanness. We're not going to hurt any dogs or be physical. You're just going to, through attitude and mindset, stand your ground until you win the battle. It's not really a battle, but those of you who have children out there, you know that when a kid says, I'm not going to bed, I don't feel like it, I'm not going to, you better win that battle, or the next time the kid is 16 years old and saying, I'm not coming home at all, I'm staying out till 3 in the morning, I'll do whatever I want. So you win the smaller battles, so that the bigger battles, they respect you and listen to you. Same thing with dogs. Every dog is different. The Husky in the house was doing things after 2 tries and really ingraining them and really learning them. The Chihuahua was challenging me on everything, but once I won the attitude, he began to do everything I told him to. They're really fascinating creatures, and they're very black and white. Dominant, submissive, leader, follower, right, wrong, positive, negative. So if you think in these terms, training is much easier. Humans tend to use a lot of words. We tend to try to reason with them. We can't understand why they don't understand what we want from them. We're usually not simplifying it enough for them. We're usually not putting it in simple enough terms. So that's something to consider when you're training. When you have a young puppy, like a Husky in the house, this Husky in the house, you want to respect the older dogs in the house too. The older dogs are going to help you raise your puppy. They're going to make small corrections, show them where the bathroom is, give them a lot of unspoken information that we don't even fully understand. You know, we don't even fully understand how dogs communicate with each other. They just learn from each other. A good example is one of the trainings I did today. They asked me, they said their male dog does not lift his leg. And people wonder why the dog doesn't lift his leg, or their male dog doesn't lift his leg. Lifting the leg is a learned behavior from other dogs. It doesn't come naturally. It's not born into a dog. They learn it from another dog, and we don't even fully understand how or why. I mean, maybe they just watch the other dog do it, but once a male dog has learned that from another dog, they never go back. They just lift their leg from then on when they go to the bathroom. But you know, that's a learned behavior, and before they see another dog do it, or they're taught, they're not gonna do it. So that's a kind of a fascinating little thing, and it proves to me that dogs are learning and listening and absorbing things that we're not even sure of. They learn from each other, they learn from us, they're watching, they're listening, they're little sponges. And just like children, you want to always be aware that your dog is watching, your dog is listening. I call it passive training. When you're living in your house, they're learning your voice, they're learning your rhythms, they're learning what motivates you, they're learning what you want from them, they're learning what makes you angry, what you don't like. They're just little sponges watching you. The other thing they do is they watch your weaknesses. They're going to look for, when you go this way, I'm going to go this way. When you reach for this cabinet, food falls out, or whatever. They learn everything. You know, we go through life, we have jobs and entertainment and friends and lunches, and we go to movies and shopping malls. Your dog sits at home and lives for you. They live for you. And so I think we have to respect that. We have to really respect the fact that our dog has nothing but what we allow. So if your dog has nothing but what you allow, then fulfill your dog's needs. If they need exercise, give them exercise. If they need leadership, give them leadership. If they need food, shelter, clothing, you know, that's not all they need. Or clothing. They need food, shelter, protection, leadership. That's not even all they need. You have to have a relationship with your dog where you're fulfilling their needs as well as them fulfilling your needs. And oftentimes people get a dog for selfish reasons. They want to have love and cuddling and sweetness, but they don't provide the needs of the dog. And I highly, highly encourage you to observe your dog's needs, research your dog's needs, and then provide those needs every day. It's a relationship. And if you can't do that, you probably shouldn't adopt a dog in the first place. The beautiful thing about dogs is they will make us unselfish. They will bring us out of ourselves. to try to understand them, to try to provide for them. It's a very giving, sharing, symbiotic relationship, and I highly, highly suggest that you open yourself to this, because they'll teach us to be not non-selfish. They'll teach us to reach out of ourselves. Every morning I get up. Sometimes I complain because I have to fix 4 breakfasts and do medication for dogs and let them out and change the water. And I'm doing this, multiple times a day. But you know what? The rewards far outweigh the work. I love my dogs and I love doing for them. And it has brought me out of myself. It has made me less selfish, less self-centered. And I just really strongly urge you to open yourself to your dogs and see how they can change you. I talk about that a lot in my book, A Dog's Way. And it'll tell you a lot about this relationship and how you can open yourself to it. Let me check the time just briefly so I'm not going over. Okay, I have 5 minutes. Let me look at this question that's come up. I always have to get right into the phone so I can read these questions because my glasses don't work so well over there. Let's see, Linda wrote in and said, I have an 18-month-old hound mix, but only 40 pounds because of the mix, but doesn't come to me when I turn him loose in the yard. Looks like a Jack Russell and is very fast, wonderful boy, but he tries to be the boss. Okay. I believe that the come command is the most important thing you can teach your dog. And what we often do is just turn the dog loose in the yard and say, come here, come to me, come here now. Come. And that dog's in Disneyland. He's got smells and trees and fun and birds and squirrels. Why would he come to you? You're going to bring him inside and close Disneyland, right? It's always a downer. Not always, but it's often a downer. The dog is going to trade something great to come to you and get put in the house. Why would a dog ever do that? So we need to condition the dog many, many, many times that they come to us and they receive an amazing reward. And the most important part is we let them go back to what they were doing before or whatever they want to do. So the dog goes out in the yard, they're running around a while. You say, let's say the dog's name is Jack, for example. You say, Jack, come. When he arrives at you, he gets a treat. And you can say, good boy, if you want to, good boy, and then let him go do whatever he wants. Walk away from him. The problem is we say, come. They get there, we clamp the leash on. Come, we put him in the house. Come, we stick him in the kennel. Come, we go in the car. It's just negative, negative, negative. Let's have 1,000 positives, If the come command is a particularly difficult command for you, find a treat that he never sees except when you say, Jack, come. Only when you say that does he get cheese or bologna or whatever your magic treat is. That dog's, I swear, they're going to trade off anything for that a bunch of times over. But you got to give them something better than what they have out there. The other thing is we start too fast. We go out in the yard and try to get them to come to us when they're overwhelmed with senses, Start in your living room. Start in your hallway. Start in your bedroom. When we learn to drive, we learn to drive in a parking lot. We don't learn to drive on the interstate, right? So go in your hallway or your living room. Show the dog's nose the treat, right? Show your dog's nose. I always say show them. I don't mean show their eyes or let them see it. I mean show their nose. Then walk away from the dog and say, Jack, come. So you're showing him what reward is waiting for him. Maybe the first few times he doesn't even know what that means. But Jack, come. He gets the treat, let him go. Jack, come. Let him go. And do that 4 or 5 times. Don't do it 50 times. Do it 4 or 5 times, leave it alone. Come back and do that a couple times a day, 4 or 5 times. Then when he's consistent about coming to you, maybe put him on a long lead, a long laundry line or something, and then take him out in the yard and try it back and forth. Get several people to help you with it. Call him back and forth with treats. You're conditioning the mind that when you say, Jack, come, that means you might as well be yelling pizza, right? He comes to you, and you're not tricking him. So maybe 1 out of 5 times you bring him in the house. Maybe 1 out of 5 times you put the leash on. You can also start doing the come command where he comes across the threshold into the house, and then you let him go back out. Jack, come, he comes in the house, you let him go back out. So he doesn't feel like you're going to slam the door and trick him. These are all really good ways to condition. Pretty soon you're going to start to see that instinct overrides thinking. You're saying, Jack, come, and the dog's looking at something they want to do, and they just start running before they even think about it. So that's something to consider. I'm running out of time. I think I'm at the end here. Let me just make sure. Yep, I'm at the end of my show. I want to thank you all for joining me this week. If you have further questions, let me see what this says here. Okay, if you have any further questions or you want to talk to me, I do Skype sessions, phone sessions. I travel all over the country. I'm going to be speaking to the Yorkie National Rescue Organization in Nashville on September 2nd. If you happen to be around for that, you can write to me and find out more details about that. I'm also going to, I do a lot of speaking engagements and all kinds of things. I'd be happy to speak for your organization, or, I do a lot of things. So give me contact me through thedogcounselor.com if you're interested in any training, teaching, seminars, anything. I'm happy to do it, or any questions you might have. If you're in the Nashville area, I do in-home visits. I can come to your house and teach and train. But I want to thank you guys for joining us here on the Wolf Driver channel. It's a great place to be. Check out the other shows on the Wolf Driver channel. And I look forward to talking to you guys. The next time I'm on is Sunday night at 6, Thursday nights at 8, every week. So come on by and let's talk dogs. All right, have a good night. Bye.